Welcome to the Let Them Live podcast with Emily Burning, a place for meaningful conversations, real stories, and a shared mission to protect life. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning. As you guys know, I am the co-founder and president of Let Them Live. And today I have the privilege of speaking to one of our moms. I don't think that I've talked to one of our moms on a podcast in a little while. So this is very exciting because you guys get to hear firsthand the story of a woman who was, facing pressures, facing, troubling circumstances, whatever it was, facing that abortion decision and having the courage to reach out to Let Them Live. And so I'm excited for her to share her story, to share her journey. And you guys get that sort of inside look into what it is that we do at Let Them Live. It's one thing for me and for all of our team to constantly tell you on social media, this is what we do, this is who we help. But it's something entirely for me to platform someone who's actually been through it and for you to hear directly how she's been helped. So, Maribel, thank you so much for joining me. I would really, really love for you to just get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and take us back to when you first connected to Let Them Live, or even before that, kind of where you found yourself, or just really however you want to start your story.
Okay, so hi, I'm Maribel. I am 36 years old. I am a high school English teacher, and I got pregnant in March of 2024. I found out very, very soon. I found out in April, and when I communicated that I was pregnant to the father of my child, his first reaction was that we couldn't have a child, that we needed to get an abortion. And that was very shocking for me because when I found out, I was very happy because I was told that I couldn't have kids. I had a lot of health issues. I had the base of my uterus removed at one point. So I was very sure that I couldn't have kids. And I had made peace with that. And I was already at an age where I was like, 2 more years and it's a genetic pregnancy. So when I found out, I was very, very happy. And after that, I reached out to Let Them Live. Like, I think I was already like 2 months into my pregnancy or 3 months, something like that. I don't remember exactly. But my pregnancy started getting bad. It was a high risk pregnancy. So it started getting bad really quick. And I started realizing that I was very alone for the pregnancy. And I didn't know that educators don't get paid during maternity leave. And I had already learned that the father of my child didn't want to be part of it. And when I reached to Let Them Live, he had scheduled an appointment for me. And I reached out because I was very uncertain to, like, should I go through with this? Or, like, I don't know how I'm going to survive financially. I was already using my sick days because the first thing that happened to me was that urine was going into my kidneys. And if any mother has experienced that, that's pretty painful. And I was told that I needed a cerclage. It was very overwhelming. And again, like the uncertainty, I was very scared, and I think that's like one of the things why I was letting him talk me into getting an abortion was because pregnancy is scary in a love and marriage, and ideally, I always thought if I ever had a child, I wanted to be in a love and marriage, and that was not the case. So I reached out to Let Them Live And I was assured that I would receive help, that because one of my main concerns was I don't know how I'm going to pay rent because I already don't get paid during the summer. And I was already losing days. So because I used all my sick days. So every day that I was absent, I wasn't getting paid. So I was losing at that time, I was losing about $350 every day that I was absent. And Let Them Live assured me that they would help me with rent and that they would help me with things for the baby. So I spoke with the father of my child and I told him that I was considering not going through with it. And he was very nice, very kind in that moment. And he told me that he would just pick me up, we would talk about it. He told me we would go have breakfast and talk over breakfast. So when the day came, he did pick me up. We did have breakfast, but we didn't address the abortion. And I didn't want to address it. Like, I didn't want to start talking about it because it was something that I wanted to avoid because it was a hard topic. And he just drove me to the abortion clinic. And I told him that we talked about it, that he wasn't gonna drive me there. And he kept saying, like, look, it's our our appointment is for, I think it was like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. Because in Florida, you need 2 appointments. The first one is, like, I think it was, like, to check how you are, or I'm not sure. I don't remember very well, but you need 2 appointments. The first one, you get checked, and the second one, you get, the procedure or the pill, whatever option. So, we got there, I didn't get out of the car, and I refused, and there was one single person that had a poster against abortion. And I was like, "I'm not gonna walk. Like, there's a person there. Like, I'm not gonna go through with this. I don't want this." And I told him, like, "You can be as involved as you want," but deep down, I did want him to be involved. And at that moment, he questioned if the baby was his. And I told him that he could pay for a paternity test while the baby was still in utero. And he just drove me to my house. And after that, he ghosted me. He disappeared completely. We didn't talk anymore. And he continued his life. He began dating somebody that made him feel, um I guess at that point he needed that. He needed the attention. He needed somebody to make him feel good about himself. So he started dating somebody that made him feel that way. He started dating somebody that came from a very impoverished area in Brazil. And I guess he misled her as well because she was sure, and she would tell all her friends that she was gonna marry him. And she needed that marriage because um her visa was about to expire. She had a work visa, it was about to expire. I spoke with him, and I remember it was like the weekend of the 4th of July. So I spoke with him because during that weekend, I was already full on high risk pregnancy, and I have fibroids, and I have 5 huge fibroids. The baby was taking the blood out of the fibroids, and the fibroids were degenerating. So this causes a pain like an organ is dying. When I tell you this causes a pain like an organ is dying, I needed help. Showering. I couldn't get up. I was hospitalized so many times. And I was alone. And after a while, your friends stop being there for you. So I remember I contacted him the weekend of the 4th of July because I had a doctor that suggested that I should terminate. But there was a law in Florida that was implemented that May that shortened the amount of weeks that you could terminate. So she told me that I needed to, if I wanted to go through with it, then I needed to contact states like New York, Virginia, or up north. And at that point, I started considering it not only because I was suffering tremendously, but because I had the 20-week, I think it was a 20-week scan, and I was told that my child was coming with spina bifida and with Down syndrome. And I work in education, so I know that Down syndrome is not like a bad thing in terms of, they can be as successful as anybody else. It's the medical implications of having a child with Down syndrome. And when they told like the spina bifida, I was like, what if he's suffering inside of me? Because they don't tell you the degree of spina bifida that the child has, because they can't tell. And they could barely see him because there were so many fibroids that uh, every sonogram that I had, the fibroids were in the way. So I remember I contacted him, and one of the things I told him was, I need you to tell your family, because if we go through with an abortion, that is going to go against everything in me. It's like everything I want, everything that I believe in. And if I am going to suffer, I need you to tell your family, because he wanted to maintain he lives his life trying to maintain a certain image. He told me that he didn't want to tell his family. So I told him, I gave him an ultimatum. I told him, you're gonna tell you have a Friday to tell your family, or I'm telling them. At the time that he ghosted me, I had to hire a private investigator because I didn't have much of his information. And those were things that I needed because um, I was going through with the pregnancy and I needed his name on his birth certificate. So if I like filed for that for child support or anything, I needed his information. So I contacted him for the 4th and I told him what was going on. And I told him the baby is coming with, because during the time that he ghosted me, he was just not answering my messages, but he was receiving them. So I told him what was going on with me, with my health, that it was a high risk pregnancy, that a doctor had recommended termination, and that I was very scared because the baby was coming with spina bifida, and that could mean that the baby was suffering inside utero, and that that it also said that he was coming with Down syndrome, and that was going to require a lot of medical attention once he was born. So I remember he told me that he couldn't that weekend, that he had to go to Ecuador with his father. But because I had done the investigation, I had received a lot of information that he was I received a lot of information from social media from his friends. And I had also received information that he was going into debt and that he drives a Camaro. So that's like he was embarrassingly proud. Um he was embarrassingly proud of that Camaro. And when the investigation came, I saw that he was behind on car payments. And at that point I was like, oh my God, this man, like he wants to pretend he has money to impress others. And he doesn't even pay rent. He doesn't pay anything in his household, yet he is behind on car payments. And I remember he's from Ecuador. His family's from Ecuador. So he told me that he needed to go to Ecuador with his father because his father was in his late 70s and he couldn't travel alone. because of the information I had, I found out that he was in Cancun celebrating the 40th birthday of one of his friends.
Wow.
And mind you, like during this entire time period, like during my entire pregnancy, I could barely walk. And I was so mad because I was going through so much with my health, with my body, financially, and he's out there living his life, trying to impress a woman he had met at work. So when I contacted him that weekend, it was a little before. I remember it was like the weekend of the 4th, but I contacted him like by the end of the week and I was hospitalized. And he he mentioned that he and I later on I told him that I needed him to tell his family. He said he would, and I gave him till a Friday to tell his family, and he did not. So that Friday I drove to his dad's house because I wanted to talk with his dad and tell him everything that his son was doing. Because I was like, in my mind, like this is a Hispanic family. Um, his dad is from the silent generation. He is not gonna condone what his son is doing. And boy, was I wrong. So I left a note because I couldn't find his dad. He was at work. I made sure that he was at work because at this point I was scared that he was gonna hurt me. Or that he was gonna do something to me for me to lose the baby. And I contacted his sisters. He has an older sister, he has a younger sister. His older sister responded. And till this day, she is the only one that has ever seen the baby. She's the only one that has remained in contact with me. So, I decided not to go through with the pregnancy. He told his then girlfriend, that was summer of 2024, he told her that I was expecting. She contacted me. I told him that I would tell her, but I was bluffing. I was not gonna tell her because I was sure that he's very charming. So I was sure that he was gonna convince her of everything, and I had already learned about her visa status. So I was like, "This woman is not gonna leave him for anything because he is giving her a lifestyle that she has never experienced, and he is taking her out to expensive dinners, to clubs that she had never in her life seen." So he was taking her to hotels, and she was very mesmerized with all this lifestyle. When she contacted me, one of the first things I told her was, "I don't wanna be with him." And she told me that his version of the story, because he got scared and he decided to tell her. So, she told me that his version of the story was that I was a one-night stand. I met him in 2022. I was not a one-night stand. I had been consistently seeing him for a while, for about a year. And she told me that he had said that he was drunk that night and that he barely knew me. He denied that he was with her. He told me that that she was just a girl that they had met. He told me that they hadn't even slept together. He denied everything about her. And one of the things that she told me that I was very disgusted by was that part. I told her that what he had said about her, that he had just met her, that he hadn't even slept with her. And I was very disgusted because she was very proud of that. She was like, "Oh, that's like one of the things that we do the most." And I'm like, like to me that was so disgusting because I'm like, I'm pregnant with this man and you're over here bragging about that. And I'm telling you that he abandoned his ch- his unborn child. And later on, fast nothing happened. His sister just told me, his older sister just told me that he never wanted to get married, that he never wanted to have kids. And this is something that he did tell me from the beginning, that he never wanted to have kids, and I couldn't have kids. And then a month later, I didn't go through with the abortion or anything. A month later, I I started getting pains. Um, for some reason, he was like there, not there with me, but he would like tell me like if I needed anything or whatnot, until his ex got very jealous, so he stopped. And I I was hospitalized a weekend of August. I think it was the weekend of the 17th. I was hospitalized because I was in severe pain. And I left and I went home. No, oh no, not only was I severe pain, I missed out. I was also, I'm sorry, the baby's distracting me. I
That's
was
okay.
also losing,
No, you're okay. That's life.
because he's just jumping. He's so happy right now. He's just jumping around, and he got a tissue in his mouth. He gave me the tissue.
I just I just have to say I absolutely love this that you're telling me about your story, years ago, and the position that you were in, and obviously it's awful, but, he's making noise and, doing cute things and getting your attention. I just think it's beautiful that he's there right now and you're sharing this, so keep going, but I get it. He just loves his mom and, um, he's a cutie.
She's so cute. He's put confetti in his mouth. But he gives me the confetti
Oh, yeah, kids it's like yes, after or before he puts it in his mouth.
because he knows he's not supposed to put it in his mouth.
I love it.
And he's
I
ridiculously
love it,
happy
I
for
love it.
water every second, and he just spits it out.
Kids do the craziest things, I tell you. I love it.
And
I love that he's right there with you. What I wanted to touch on too that you had talked about, um, it's something that I have seen with so many women, not just the women that we've helped at Let Them Live, but just I don't know, just on the internet, just through pregnancy help centers, just in the pro-life movement, that women, find themselves pregnant, whatever the situation is, and the father of the child, regardless of the relationship, whether it is a one night stand or if it is a relationship, just dips and is like, have the abortion. Either they just don't care and they just leave and they abandon and they ghost, or they pressure to abort. And I think that's a serious problem. And I think that the fact that you lived through that, and not only was it that he abandoned you and your child, um, but you are also going through a high risk pregnancy, having severe pain, having to be hospitalized, dealing with the financial load that you were dealing with and the stressors that you were dealing with. I think that that gives a really that paints the full picture of what women are dealing with who find themselves in unexpected pregnancies. And yours was very unexpected because you didn't think you could get pregnant. So I so you were hospitalized in was you said the end of August, because you were losing amniotic fluid?
yes, well,
How what happened
I want to
next?
go back to what you mentioned. I
Yeah,
don't
go
know
for
what
it.
I don't know what his thoughts were, but we have to be fair, with men too. It is very scary. Having a child is very scary, and one of the points that he brought to me was that financially, it was a I'm sorry, it was a huge load financially. And one time he told me that people struggle with pets. So, like, a child is not a pet. And I don't think he knew, that I was struggling financially because it wasn't something that we talked about, and he knew I had a good job, and he knew I made more money than him. So, to be fair, I don't think he ever thought I was struggling financially, because what I did express was that I felt lonely, and he used that to his case of, like, "You should get an abortion because it's gonna get lonelier." And he was right, it did get lonelier, but that didn't last, because these are everything in life, every suffering that you have in life, it doesn't last forever. So that was just a phase, and that ended, and that weekend, I was losing amniotic fluid, and I was to the hospital. I got hospitalized again. I didn't inform him because at that point, he no longer cared, or he was trying to portray that he no longer cared. And I was discharged. I had a friend that stayed with me while I was at the hospital, and then I was discharged. And I was in pain, and I didn't know I was having contractions, and I waited the entire day to get a vaginal exam, and I didn't get one. And since the pain, this is how bad fibroid pain is. I confuse contractions at 8 centimeters with fibroid pain. The only reason after I got discharged, the only reason why I went back to the hospital was because I was losing blood. So I was bleeding, and it was like discharge, and I didn't know. So for a second, I was like, do I call an ambulance? And I called everybody, and it was like 3 in the morning. I called everybody, and 3 in the morning, nobody answered. And I left him a voicemail, and I said, hey, I think I'm having miscarriage. And then I drove to the hospital. And when I was getting closer to the hospital, that's where I felt the contractions really, really bad.
Where'd you go? This tech, I don't know. I don't know. I'm about to lose it. Look at that little guy. Look, look at that little guy. So he's clearly doing all right.
He is. He's getting his therapies because he was born premature. He was a micro preemie. Um, so he's thriving. I'd love to know where you got that control. That's when you stayed your room. This mom needs.
So when you were going through your pregnancy, can you he's like, "No, it's mine." Can you tell everyone a little bit about what your experience was like with Let Them Live and, like, the counselor and just yeah, how that was for you and the support?
Well, and with Let Them Live, I was assigned a counselor, which I would vent, and that was because I do go to therapy. I go to therapy because I think it's very important to go to therapy. So the counselor would I agree to me, and it was like an it wasn't like an added therapy, but I think it was important for me to vent at that moment because I had a lot to say, and I was very frustrated. And uh-oh. Uh-oh. I didn't want to overwhelm my friends. And at that point, one of my sisters, she wanted to be there for me in her own way, and her own way wasn't ideal. So she would make me feel really bad about everything. And I I I would tell the counselor these things. I would just vent. And I remember I was in a WhatsApp group, and we would have meetings once a week. So, um, in the first meeting that we were at, it was very negative. So it was like a group. So everybody and like I get it, you're going through a lot, but I always try not to be negative, and I always try to see things in such a positive manner. Yeah. Do you want milky milk? And to me that really bothered me. So I remember I spoke to my counselor, and they switched me to another group that was more positive. And in a moment where everything was so negative, because even the people that were around me, even they were negative, and that's not what I needed during that time period. And everybody was bashing against the father of my child, and that's not what I needed, because he gave me my child. So, and that's important too. Without him, I wouldn't have my child. So it was nice having uh positive group meetings. They would share they would share what they were going through. Um I never had like that community of other mamas. So they would talk about pregnancy, and that was helpful because you learn and you get to share like what's going on with your pregnancy, uh um different types of advice. So that was pretty helpful. um I enjoyed speaking with my counselor. I had Anna. I don't know if she still works for Let Them Live, but
Anna, yes. Yeah, she's the best.
yeah, so like
We
it
love
was,
Anna.
yeah. Yeah, she's nice. So it was like the sweetness and kindness at that moment. And she shared with me also her story. So so it was like that community. I enjoyed that community. In that moment, it was a different community because that's not my circle. I don't have a circle of other mamas, or people that are going through similar situations as me during that time period. I To me, it was really hard also, um, with my therapist, because my therapist was pregnant at the same time. We had the same amount of weeks. So it was hard for me because she was in love and marriage. Her pregnancy was going very smooth, and I'm over here struggling. So that was really hard for me. And at the very beginning of my pregnancy, my sister was pregnant too. She had done IVF. That she made things so much worse for me, and I had to cut with that relationship, and that was something my therapist had suggested for me to consider. And when I had the baby, a lot of courage comes with having a baby, and you find your strength within yourself when you have a baby. So when I had the baby, I mustered the courage to cut my sister out of my life because she was harming me
Mm,
in so many ways,
mhm.
whether it was intentional or not. And I would have never gotten that courage had it not been. because becoming a mother gave me that courage. So,
That's
uh,
amazing. Well, it sounds like you have also I mean, the way you talk about it too, you're like, having a child gives you courage, like, seems like you would have some good advice for pregnant women who maybe find themselves in a situation similar to yours. I mean, what would you tell them if they're, maybe father of the baby abandons them, or they're just not knowing what to do, finances, all of the things, like, what do you say to them?
well, I mean, life is very uncertain and everything is temporary, but your child is not. And I was very excited. Personally, I was very excited to become a mother at the very beginning. And then came the doubts and the uncertainty and the financial issues. So listen to your gut. Deep down, you love your child. Deep down, you don't want to harm him. And we shouldn't let others talk us into these things. Ultimately, it's your decision. And there's nothing better in this life. There's no bigger motor in life than love. And having a child is the biggest love that you will ever feel. Like, you love your children like you've never loved. It's such a consuming love. It's such an amazing love. And you I don't think anybody should give that up just because of convenience of the moment. Because yeah, I mean, maybe financially you're not okay, but that could happen with or without a child. I mean, everything is temporary and God is always there for you. That's important to know. And you just have to ask God, and you
Absolutely.
just have to have faith. And I never I always question. I'm not very Christian, and I've always questioned a lot about things about God. But my baby was born at 23 weeks. My baby was a pound and 13 ounces when he was born. He had his eyes shut. He was intubated. I didn't get to hold my child until 5 weeks in. I didn't get to breastfeed my child until he was 4 months. I didn't get to take my child home until he was 185 days. And during those 185 days, there is not one time that I doubted that my child wasn't going to make it. And I remember being pregnant and being very mad. And I remember telling God, because I was in pain, in unbearable pain. And I remember telling God and questioning God that why wasn't I in this position? And that he better have something amazing coming up for me. And he did. And it's not ideal and we shouldn't question God, and I know this. But in the moment that's how I felt. So, and this is something I didn't notice until months later or like a year down the road, that I never doubted that my child wasn't going to survive. I always knew that I was going to eventually take my child with me. And I would go to the hospital and I would just talk about like my child and the milestones that he was reaching and what he was doing and like his medical condition. And I would talk about all these things, but not for a second did I doubt. And this wasn't something that I did purposefully. I didn't I didn't force a faith. I just felt that he was going to survive. And he did. And there were babies that didn't. And I am so unbelievably lucky that I went through that and I experienced that and I got my baby. because there were some mamas that didn't get their baby. And that was just the path that God chose for them. And God rewarded me with such an amazing child. And my child, he is the happiest child a lot of people have ever seen. He is so charismatic. He everywhere he goes, he smiles at everybody. Everybody's very surprised at how friendly he is, how nice he is. And even though I struggled in many areas, it wasn't only financially. And I'm very grateful also because when I had the baby, that was very unexpected. I'm very grateful for Let Them Live because one of the first things that they asked me was, "What do you need?" And at that moment, I needed, um, I forgot what it's called. I needed something for my pump because that was the only connection I had with my baby producing milk. And I needed something with my pump. And they sent me that. They sent me diapers. They sent me preemie clothes. And I never used the diapers, but I donated them because um, when he got home, he wasn't wearing newborn diapers anymore because he was no longer a newborn baby. And then the hospital provides diapers. So um, I was very grateful for that. I I couldn't join the moms group from Let Them Live when he was, because in the hospital that he was at, they had the third floor for the like the micro preemies or the babies that are really um struggling health wise. And then the seventh floor, that's where they take you, like that's your final step. So I couldn't join the Let Them Live group when he was in the third floor. But I started joining it when he was in the seventh floor, and there were other mothers that had had premature babies, and they would give me a lot of advice on pumping, which I needed a lot of advice on pumping, and I needed a lot of encouragement because I never was able to produce the milk that he needed, and that broke me. Like I tried, and I was able to breastfeed him until May of this May. And I am so grateful that I got to breastfeed him. And I remember I got to breastfeed him during that Christmas, a few days before Christmas. That was the first time I got to actually get him to latch because he was intubated. And I was so happy. And I was so grateful to God. And I remember I don't I don't pray a lot, but I remember I prayed to God that day and I was so grateful for that he let me experience that because I think that this might be my only child. I could be wrong, that I didn't want him to be my only child and for me not to breastfeed because that was very important for me. And he got baptized at the hospital. He got baptized on November 12th of 2024. I was able to baptize him. His aunt was there. Um, and he spent that first Christmas there. He spent that first New Year's there. And I was robbed of a lot of first moments. I was robbed of a lot of things, not only about my pregnancy. I didn't get to the third trimester. Um, I was robbed from a lot of firsts, but at the end, I have my child, and at the end, I get to have tons of other firsts. and tons of other things. And I get to be eternally grateful that he survived, that he made it, and that he is the child that he is. So I will forever
Yes.
keep
And
grateful to
you
God for that.
you had the courage to stand up for him. You had the courage to say, "No, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna have this abortion." Like, you protected his life, and that's honorable. Eh, that's something that, like, everyone should be clapping for. I mean, it took you saying, "Okay, I'm gonna do this," you know? And look where he is now. I mean, he's very happy. I've only seen him a couple times on the screen, and he's clearly the happiest baby ever, you know? Um, and I think that your story is a great testimony for other women that there is hope. And like you said, the circumstances are temporary. Everything is. And there is someone out there that can be a friend, can be a support, can be a help, can be a resource. Like, we're in 2026, or in your case, it was 2024. Even still, the 21st century, there's hope, there's support, you know? And I'm glad that you chose life. I'm glad that you didn't go to that abortion appointment. I'm glad that you didn't let anyone tell you um, to have an abortion. And I'm glad he's here. And I'm glad that you're his mom, because God had a plan for him, has a plan for him, has a plan for you as his mom. And I think that that is absolutely beautiful. And I'm grateful for you opening up and being so vulnerable and sharing your story, because that's not an easy thing to do, to kind of expose your mind and your emotions to the internet. So I appreciate you doing that. And I mean, it was just amazing to hear your story, and I think a lot of women will be encouraged by your strength and by what you've had to say, and just your perseverance through some very, very, very difficult things that most women may not go through ever. And you went through a lot of things all stacked on top of each other at the same time. So I think your story is definitely one of resilience. And I'm grateful that you reached out to us. And I'm grateful that, you were able to get some help, get some support, even if it was just little things, and feel like, okay, I can do this. I can have this baby, and we're gonna figure it out. Thank you again for sharing, and I appreciate you, and, I hope it just and I wish and I pray for the very best for both of you, continuing on the rest of your lives, and for many more firsts that you get to experience with your little miracle baby.
He turns 2 next week.
Oh my
Starting
goodness.
Yes. So, from his NICU stay, he he's in therapy because every NICU baby is a little bit delayed. So, he's in all therapies like speech, feeding, occupational, physical, but he is no longer on constant oxygen because I had to take him out of the hospital on oxygen. He no longer is needing his oxygen. He
Good.
walks. Um, it took him a while to walk, but he's walking and he's talking, and I'm very grateful, and I love spending my time with him, and he makes my life so much better.
I love that. I love that so much, and he's clearly bringing joy to so many people, so
Yes, yes.
I love that. Well, yeah, thank you again, and, you guys, if you, wanna engage, with the podcast, leave a comment, share this. We'll have more moms on. I really like talking to our moms and hearing the
Yeah.
stories. They're all so different, but in some ways they're similar, and so I think it's really important, to highlight these wonderful women. But, yeah, thank you so much again, Maribel, and I hope you guys have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Let Them Live podcast with Emily Burning. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know your thoughts in the comments and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.